we're saying is we're not trying to just solve the problem. We're actually trying to grow through the problem.
Absolutely. You learn so much about yourself. Some people find a problem and they run away. You can't do anything with running away. You either have to run towards or at least stand and face it.
Rick, good morning.
Good morning, Eddie.
We have the Leader's Furnace today. It is 5:30 in the morning on a Wednesday morning. Usually that's when we record. We are in the Steam Museum, right? Is that the
Yes.
space that we're in?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the space that we're in.
So about maybe 5 years ago, we decided to do a steam museum. We're kind of a tribute to old steam is what it was. And we were adding kind of one part at a time. And then all at once, we decided to get all in. And I ran across it's kind of interesting how it happened. We wanted to buy these items in here are smaller and lighter weight so they can be on display in the office. But the big items are too heavy to be in here. So we went looking for bigger things, and we found a thing called a calliope. So a calliope is it's like an organ, but it runs off steam. So before they had like pipe organs that ran off air, they ran off steam. So we found one in Washington State. A guy named Gordon Sullivan had it. So we bought it, brought it back, and kind of did the transaction. I didn't spend too much time with Gordon. Brought it back, really cool. And the guy had, there's some people you run across that maintains their stuff impeccably. And this guy, man, we got it, and there was nothing to do. It just worked. Things really, really old. Just everything about it worked. Everything was lubricated. Everything was clean. Just turned it on and went to work on it. So it's pretty amazing just to buy something from someone that's with that type of behavior. So we get it, and we're excited, and we get it, and then eventually we get a little bit bored with it, and we're like, okay, what's next? Which is a thing that we do here. And so go looking for some other stuff. Well, he has a whole museum, and he's about 80 or 85 years old, so he's slowly wanting to kind of get out of his museum. But Sam and I would talk. I would talk on my way home with him for 30 or 45 minutes, and we got to become friends. And so we ended up buying his whole collection of stuff. Yeah, he had a railroad throughout he had a farm and a railroad there, so he had like 3/4 of a mile railroad, steam engines, steam cars. A lot of this stuff in here, the gauges, whistles, feed water pumps, just a wonderful collection of items. So that's kind of how we had the idea of it, and we did that, just took off to another level. So the vision of it is that another 5 years, we're going to basically take part of this shop and turn it into what's called a line shaft. Back in the early 1900s, the steam engines would run a line shaft with belts on it, and you could run all these. But they have like a line shaft machine shop. We're going to set it back up and turn it back on. That when people come here and visit, we can have the steam history and the steam museum fired up, and maybe a few other things out there that are pretty cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the idea is in the next 5 years, you want people to be able to come and see different steam-powered machines that you have.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I've seen maybe there's a motorcycle, like a carriage. There's multiple cool things out there. Yeah.
Yes. We have a steamboat.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's here. You've been on the steamboat, right?
I have.
Okay. That's something that goes out every year, like June or July. We take family and friends and business people out with us. It's a blast to see what it was like in 1900 to be boating with steam propulsion. Then we have a steam train. We have a steam car. We have a steam motorcycle, which is very dangerous, but it's definitely it's a custom-made. Gordon made it himself. It's an amazing machine. It's not something you could purchase. He actually handmade this thing. So we just keep adding to it a little bit at a time.
Okay.
We have a traction engine.
Equal chances of wrecking or blowing up into the air.
When you're on the motorcycle, it's either going to be a lot of fun or you're going to the hospital. I mean, it's going to be one or the other. But it's just old school, and you're sitting right next to a propane bottle and a boiler running at 300 or 400 psi as you're propelling yourself along, being excited about it. You're not thinking about what the potential of it is. But back then, they were excited to have it.
Yeah.
So a lot of fun.
I'm going to tell you what my wife says to me all the time. No gracias. She's like, I'm good. Okay, so we're in the museum. Tell me about the Leader's Furnace. Why the Leader's Furnace? If people are picking up right here today, we just really want them to be able to understand, Is it a play on the boilers? Is it your leader's journey? Like, why the leader's furnace?
Well, you know, I just for some reason am aware of illusions, maybe a little more than most people, and I don't like them. You know, a lot of people just play along with whatever comes their way, and I'm a bit of a illusion buster. You know, kind of maybe a chain breaker person, where it's just like what's happening is happening, but there's something else happening. And I just always wanted to understand that I didn't like the idea of being, dumb or foolish or unaware, because I had seen a lot of things go wrong in that arena. So at least if I knew, well, you never know what the truth is. The truth is a lot of things, but striving for the truth of it and the understanding of it would help my sickness. It would help my personality style be careful, or at least be prepared for something that could unravel. So I've kind of lived that life the whole time. I lived it when I was younger, because that's kind of what created it. Well, that's not true. It created it, and then I went into business. It was the same thing, just a different. It wasn't. It's a different version of it. So we're just trying to tell the story of that. Trying to tell the story of what it's like to be in the illusion, in the clouds, in the darkness, in the fear and the anxiety, and then what it's like to strive to break out of that. And then to see the clouds removed and the clarity there, and to feel really good about the truth of something, not necessarily the illusion of it. Because a lot of people are intellectually lazy. They're just, or maybe emotionally lazy. I don't know how to describe it. But you got to work hard to understand the truth of things. And then people are complicated. It's a God-made world, not a man-made world. And when you encounter people, they're very different. It's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It can be confusing though. You get around certain people, and they're very different than you, and you're having a little trouble making the connection, and so you got to work really hard to make that connection and kind of go enter their world, not make them enter your world. So I think that's why, and then there's a lot of our business we do our new kind of branding is called We Build People, Then We Build Boilers, because what we found was we would receive people who needed a job, needed a career, needed to do stuff, and then we needed them to do some stuff, but there was wounding there and issues with them that were holding them back. So all these things kind of come together to have the leader's furnace, and to talk about, just have this dialogue back and forth of what it's like to get into it, to have setbacks, to overcome setbacks, to see the illusions, and then to work real hard to get basically handles on that illusion so you can move it forward.
Yeah. I actually have some practices around the things that you're talking about, but let me recap what you said. One, the truth of things. So understanding the truth of things. I'm reminded of you and I have had conversations where we talk about how you have to understand what's happening in a conversation. And people will be saying words and language, and you saying certain things, and they're signaling to you whether they're bought into you or not bought into you, whether they're going to do the work or not do the work. I remember I was in oil and gas, between the first time I was at PMI and the second time I was at PMI, I was in oil and gas for a few years, and I was in the middle of backwoods Virginia with my trainer, who was another landman, trying to teach me how to do landman work. And the lady goes, "You gonna give me 20% from the whalehead?" And I was like, "Yes," and the guy was like, "No." He's like, "We're not going to give you 20% from the wellhead." You know what I mean? Like, he's like, I'm like, what? I just said yes because I want to continue the conversation. He's like, "No, you don't agree to that." And he's like, "She's trying to take you for everything that you've got. You have to understand the language, and you have to understand what she means." He's trying to say, "Are you going to give me 20% gross, not net? After marketing and all that stuff." He's like, "She's actually trying to take a whole bunch of your money from the oil and gas." And I was like, "Oh, okay." You know what I mean? But we don't know when we're young or when we're first starting. We don't know what it's like to be on the other side of us, and then we also don't know what's happening in conversation most of the time. So when people are talking, you know what I mean? We just have to ask a lot of questions, right? And so you're saying, hey, we have to know the truth of things, and we have to have people who are willing to tell us what the truth of things are. I needed a mentor. In this case, it was Jesse. Right, and but also I needed to be willing to learn from Jesse as we go through this process. So we build people, then we build boilers. That's where that came from.
Yeah.
But two, you're like, hey, people are complicated. They have all these leadership behaviors from nature, nurture, and choice. We actually could even take whole episodes and talk about nature, nurture, and choice because it's such a foundational part of everything that we touch on. But I didn't want to miss the other thing that you said was, hey, you're a chain breaker. Um, tell me about that. How did you come to that? What does that look like for you to help people break chains of where they're coming from or who they are or patterns of behavior? Like, what does chain breaking look like for you? It's sort of an identity, right?
Yeah, it takes relationships from kind of transactional to deeper. I think a lot of people, a question I ask a lot of people on a regular basis is, especially if they're like, 25, 30, 35, 40 years old, how many people in your life can you trust? And the answers they're kind of shocking. Usually it's like 3 to 5. And you think about all your encounters in your life with all the people that are out there, and you can only trust 3 to 5. That's a signal of something that trust is it's the commodity that you want to exchange. You don't want to be. It's not a money thing. It's the getting the trust level up. And if the trust level goes up, everything changes. So this last weekend, we had an event at our farm. There was a fundraiser for Peninsula Catholic High School, and we had purchased a thing called a seafood boil for 30 people. And so there was a function going on Sunday, and it was good for me as a Sabbath. So real nice because I work on my Sabbath, and this was a great Sabbath. So I'm there, and there's one person in particular. I won't bring his name up, but he's just kind of unique, kind of special, very accountable, very serious, not overly social, low self-image, great technician. Mm-hmm. But he's not trying to be cool or not trying to be slick or not trying to be smooth. He just seems real. And so I just been around him so much, and he's there. He's working on the AC at our house, and it's like I just really like the guy, and I spend a few minutes with him. And he's, hey Rick, when are you going to retire? I'm like, probably never. And he says, okay. And I'm like, well, I can't retire because my head's on fire. And he's like, well, what's that mean? Well, my sickness and the fact that I throw myself into fear all the time. It's a cycle. So I go into fear, and then I manage myself out of the fear by having a list numbered 1 to 20, sometimes 1 to 200, depending on the complexity of what hill we're going up. So I just say that, and we leave out, and he goes working. I said, well, come down to the seafood boil in a little while. Just hang out with us. Come on down. So he comes down there, and we're doing the seafood boil, and he's standing next to me, and he says something like, Rick, I haven't told a lot of people this, but I grew up in an orphanage. I'm like, I knew it. I'm like, dude, I just knew that was in there. And he's just like, yep, grew up in an orphanage, me and 12 others. And, it was really difficult. And I'm like, yeah, you're just too deep, brother. You just tell you're accountable, you're trustworthy. He desires trust. He's not at the level of personality. He's at the level of kind of carefulness and depth. Could be 6-ish too, sure. But there it is. So what happens is we're just talking. He's never really said it. Next thing you know, we're down there together and we're just eating together. Next thing you know, he discloses where he's from and where his magic sauce was. Mm-hmm.
It's almost exciting, right? Because you're going, hey, your nature, your nurture, your narrative, your story matters so much about how we show up today. And I've learned to just use very simple words for very simple concepts, for simple realities. And so it's just the idea of like, hey, your whole story, like you're showing up, and there are things that you do today, tendencies and patterns that are because of the rule book that you've created, or the oughts and shoulds, or the things that have happened to and for you up to this point, right? And you're like, I laugh because you're just like, not because he grew up in an orphanage, but because you're like, I knew that was in there.
You could just tell there was something about him. He was deep. He was a deep thinker. He was a careful guy. He studied people. Mm-hmm. He didn't just go to work. He wanted to make sure that the risk was managed, and he would go. I'm a big fan of using the word towards or away from. A lot of people don't realize it, but they're away from type people, where when you're around them, you want to get the hell away from them quickly. You just like whether it's a depth issue or they're overdoing the personality or they're angry. It doesn't matter what it is, but they're just like, it's like it's a struggle to be with them, and you kind of hate that. but they're just like, against type people. Well, or instead of being the he's a towards type, not an away from. Okay, but look at what level our relationship went to that day. I mean, it's like, there it is. When you get relationships that, we got past the, hey, I have money, hey, I need my AC fixed, and it's like, hey, you're a human being and you got a story, and your story is, you made it out as something that was devastating, a lot of darkness there. And so I just think it's neat when you get relationships that will go that far down. Then once the trust is established, you can kind of do anything, versus just being transactional on the surface. Now it's we're not just, he's not just my air conditioning guy. He's a friend of mine that I know his story. So, and he's also a towards guy, not an away from. If you want to be a leader, you have to be a towards, not an away from. A lot of people, they're great technicians. They get in charge because they're the best service technician, best welder, best pipe fitter. And their shirt says boss. That doesn't actually work, because once you're the boss, if you misuse the power, you won't have relationships like that. You'll have people who do what they're told. They will do just enough to get the job done to keep their job, but they won't do that thing that happened with this fellow where they kind of open up and blossom, and there's a human connection, not just a financial connection.
Yes. One of the things that we like to ask is, who are you? Like we are, we have an identity. Let's say if you're a person of faith, we have an identity in the kingdom as beloved sons and daughters. But then there's this unique identity, which is just how, based on our personality and our story, who we are in the world, and what we're going to do comes from who we are, right? So I'm a gift giver. That's just a really simple way of going, hey, like I'm looking for ways to give things away, whether it's ideas, thoughts, connections, relationships, financially, right? I was just giving of gifts. Sometimes it's a reworking of people's operating system and going, hey, I had a doctor recently, and he's like, he's like, I'm short. He's like, that's an inhibition. He's like, that I'm just not very tall. You know what I mean? And I had a moment where I was like, hey, what is the gift of you not being tall? You know what I mean? He's like, he's completely in the gap with being short. You know what I mean? He's like, I don't know. He's like, I'm just sort of pissed off. You know what I mean? That I'm short. And I was like, no. Let's sit there and let's talk through it. What is the gift of you being short? And he's like, I sort of get invited to everything. He's like, people find me to be very safe. They know that I'm just very approachable. You know what I mean? And I was like, and have you helped a lot of people because of your approachability, because of how easy it is to bring you along? You know what I mean? He goes, yeah. And he's like, I sort of fit everywhere. You know what I mean? And I was like, that's what I think. Man, I'd love for him to come along. And he's a friend, so I'm always like, hey, come along, come hang out. You know what I mean? We'll make room, And going from being in the gap and thinking about the ideal, or I could be 6'1" or whatever, to him going, this is what I've been given. This is the gift that I have. And it's reframing our reality, right? Another way, and something that's happening a lot, is going, hey, these problems are not happening to you. They are literally the gauntlet or the curriculum in order for you to build out your relationship. I think I've said that a dozen times in the last week. Of going, this is not the thing you want to get rid of. This problem is the thing that builds you out over the next 6 months, a year, 3 years, 5 years. But that's me gift giving, right? Is saying, hey, we're going to reframe this. And your personal operating leadership style is going to be, I am excited about this hardship, this difficulty, because I'm going to sharpen my sword on this rock. And people find that it goes from being really soft to being one of the hardest things that they've ever done, which is to reframe their difficulties as gain. Yeah. For you, it's chain clipping, right? So chain breaking, right? And you're saying, hey, kind of like that, the technician that you were talking to on the farm, like you're saying, hey, like it's these conversations that allow you to say, hey, there's something deeper. There's something at work here. And there's a story that can be told from this. And that is, as we know, the story or your narrative is kind of almost the foundation. It's level one of getting a relationship and a conversation started for really building somebody out. If we know where you came from and we can build that out, we know where you're going as well. If
they're willing to enter into it. And there it is, if the self-image is high or the pride is high, they may not be ready yet. But over time, as like with him, he's realized that now he's speaking it. Now he can do something about it. He's sharing it with you, and then the build out begins. But, people, a lot of times they're going to resist and fight it. But at some point we have to slow down, increase our humility, and then work on ourselves, and that's very hard to do. It's embarrassing. It feels shameful, but it's the ultimate work.
Something that happens a lot is people create a rule book. Everybody creates a rule book for life. It starts really early on. And let's take babies, for example. They did this study on babies and talking about their attachment, healthy attachment or unhealthy attachment to their moms. And you would see the babies who they would test the baby, put a baby in the middle of the room. The mom would leave and the baby would be distraught that the mom had left. And then when the mom returned, the baby would be really excited to see the mom again. And then we would be able to signal that the baby has a healthy attachment. Okay. Then you have the babies. Okay. I'll put myself in this category. All right. When the mom left the room, they would be distraught as well. All right. But then when the mom came back in, they would either not receive the love of the mom or ignore the mom or, avoid the mom. Even if when the mom got close to try to nurture, the baby would just be avoidant of the mom, right? And that's where we call an unhealthy attachment, right? Or an avoidant attachment. There's different attachment styles, anxious, avoidant. And so as we move through that, a lot of leaders today, depending on the kind of mother or father they had or the kind of rules that they created, a baby who has an unhealthy attachment early on, who can't trust his mom for whatever reason, right, will grow up to go, hey, I have to do this on my own. I have to depend on myself. I can't depend on others. And that will be the rule book or the worldview that they will operate out of for 30, 40, 50 years. And if you drive and if you strive and if you push, you can be very successful in that mode, in that rule book, that mode of operating, right? We would call that rule books from your narrative or from your story. The problem is that what got you here, in your 50s, 60s, won't get you there, meaning there's another invitation. I'll just use Christian language. There's an invitation that the Lord makes to go, hey, there is a redemption process that he wants to invite us into that allows us to go, what does being a person that builds people that builds boilers, or what is being a chain breaker, right? If people accept the invitation that allows somebody like him or even like us to enter into that relationship and go, what does trusting people and being willing to let them in and being in relationship long term, what does it look like, right? Because you actually have to, the armor that got you here will not get you wherever you're supposed to go. What do you think? How does that play with you?
Absolutely. I call it the rotation. And, for a person, let's just follow the person you're describing there. Strong spirit, independent, goals, mission, kind of okay with putting people in the positions where they belong, maybe not too connected to people, but that person has a gap. I call it a 10% gap, or it's like a knob that you rotate. It's almost like we're invited by the Lord to do this thing that we don't want to do. But if we don't do it, we're missing out radically. When I was like 26 or 27 in spiritual direction with Monsignor McCarran, he told me, he's like, Rick, when you have your back to the sun, you see the shadow. You just need to turn around. And this is kind of that moment where, it works for him. He's done good. He's successful, in many ways. But that person now has to do this other work that appears to be ugly. It's to be the hardest work he's ever done because he's got to be people-y, right? Okay, and then the people-y people need to be less people-y and more business-y. It's amazing to watch it, but until people will do this 10% rotation or turn this knob, the gap is always there. For me, it's the Sabbath. Earlier, I just kind of bounced off of it that Sunday it was Sunday, it was the weekend of Memorial Day, and I just decided to not be busy about my work, and I was just being social. I never would have had a chance to hear this guy say that to me if I wasn't committed to the Sabbath that day, because I would have been busy with a notepad. I would have been planning the next week and making progress. But there it was. I was in a position to rotate, and it was uncomfortable because I wasn't that good at it. But I would have never got to see that moment happen there. So all of us have to, and it's going to take, I think it takes a lot of faith to face that as a Christian. It's just like that. It's humbling. It's hard to face that. But man, if you can face it and stick with it, and just do a little bit of it at a time. The behavior modification happens if you'll commit to it in small doses. So when we say rotate by 10%, you got to start off with rotating by the 1% of the 10. And if you'll do that, and what I'm doing is each week I'm doing a Sabbath that is, some people say the Sabbath's the whole day. Well, I can't do a whole day of Sabbath. I'm not wired for that. But I've been doing a 15-minute, 30-minute, and 1 hour. And look what happened to me last weekend. I met a new friend. I met somebody that shared with me something that he said, Rick, most people don't know this. And I'm like, it was an honor to have that person tell me what he hadn't told most people. That make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's the connection at the level of the heart and the level of the person, not the level of the business and the money. And then what happens is the business and the money just goes, because once the trust is established, the transaction stuff goes down. So.
That's so good. I realize we keep coming back to this truth, which is the one truth is all growth through discomfort. Everybody has a version of that in different spaces. And you're saying, hey, the work is in the discomfort for all of us. Yeah. And we all have a shadow side or a weak side or a left-handed side, if we're right-handed, of what we need to do. And you talk about kind of what that looks like, over time with the feelers versus the thinkers, and that we've covered that. But you're saying, hey, for you, it's a continuous work to be invited into Sabbath, into abiding, into rest, right? John 15 actually has the perfect breakdown of, it can either be, we did it in list form last night with a friend. You can actually move through and go, if you abide in me and I abide in you, you will bear fruit. And then it goes, apart from me, you can bear no fruit. So what ends up happening is we end up being in with the Lord and abiding in him and resting in him. And the ideas for you come from abiding. You have these moments of connection or these ideas where, we can even relabel, right? Like your 3:30 a.m. to 5:30 a.m. times for you. Those are times where you're just thinking, and if you invite him into that, all you're doing is co-laboring and co-thinking with him as you're starting your day. Well, that is abiding. That is professional, like at work, in motion, abiding, where all of that comes from him. For you to actually be able to introverted think and go, this is the plan that I'm going to put in place, right? That's all it is. It's just inviting him into all of it. And then from there, then you're able to do the rest of the day. And so, where was I going with that? As you're doing that, that's your work, right? It's the work that you're kind of going and doing right now.
You got to commit to it too, because it's hard. It's the opposite of yourself. And like your word, the shadow. It's that thing you want to hide it. Maybe it's embarrassing. You're not good at it, so you hide it. But it's just sitting there your whole life, waiting for you to simply accept the fact that it's a thing you're just not that good at it. But if you don't make that 10% rotation or encounter, just like with me, becoming close to people is hard for me because I've had a lot of encounters collectively that things went wrong. So I would be more guarded in relationship, and the older I get, the less guarded I want to be. I want to have more relationships like this weekend, and not all of them will be that way. That was pretty amazing, and I really enjoyed that. But I need to have deeper relationships where the trust is better, not just we're getting work done and we're business acquaintances. So.
Okay, you gave me the chance to kind of think about it. He goes, just as he's saying in the verse, apart from me, you can bear no fruit, is what he says. John 15. And so he's saying, if you're with me, you're bearing fruit. And if you're not with me, you're not bearing fruit. And I thought to myself for a second, I was like, what happens with people that are accomplishing a lot of things apart from God? Is that not fruit? And it's like, or is it just fake fruit? Is it false fruit? Or is it imitation fruit? Right? I think one of the, and I'm curious, right? Like if you abide in me, you'll bear fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. And I'm like, well, aren't a lot of us out here, aren't people out here just producing a bunch, but they're not producing fruit?
Oh, they know. You can tell because the fruit rots, and there's something wrong. You just don't know what to do about it. It's not a blame thing. It's not a judgment thing.
Yes.
You're successful. If things are going good, you're kind of living the American dream, but you can tell there's something wrong. And that's it. And because it's a worldly fruit, and then you got to figure out how to get it in the abiding fruit, or in this Bible verse you're speaking of. You got to move it over to that, and then it starts to make more sense. I was 20, 25, let's say, had a company, already owned a company at 23, power mechanical, got started, owned a business, had an absolutely wonderful wife, had my children, had a house. All these things were like check marks for the American dream, but I knew there was something wrong. And there it is. You got to, when that happens, you just have to embrace it a little bit and just wait for the message, wait for the hope, wait for the love, wait for the Lord to come and walk you out of it. And then that led me to 3 years of spiritual direction at church, working through some of the childhood issues I had, especially the issues relating to the anger of my father. But there it is, that feeling that you've got. Okay, I had that feeling. I went to church for 3 years, changed my life. In business, you're making a lot of money, but when you make the money and people don't come along with you, you're like, there's something wrong. It makes sense because you won, but they didn't win with you, and you're like, that is not the same winning. You can just tell. It's like, if you made $1 million and you don't have any benefits in your business, and you did really good, and you got a new house and a new car, and you don't have any vacation, you don't have any medical insurance, etc. You're like, there's something wrong. I gotta make this right. I gotta balance this out, and it's hard to see it at first, because at first you want to win, you want to succeed, and then you realize how hard it is, and then you realize how a lot of people don't get on board in business. So then you become frustrated and mad at them because they're getting paid but not contributing. And then you start to push and you start to shove and you start to get things done because you think they're betraying you. At least in Enneagram 6ness, it's a little bit like this. So it's okay to push them if they're betraying you, right? Because they should be pushed and they should be shoved and we should get it all done. And you realize, no, that's not what was going on. You're mad at them because you're not connected with them. And then as you start to work through all these connections, you start to realize they're just wounded. They're not against you. They just don't understand you. And we talk about in our meetings sometimes, I'm kind of the nurturer, connector killer. I'm just like, I don't mean to do it.
You are the nurture, connector, slayer.
I am the slayer, buddy. I'm like, it's like we have trouble with pretty soon they'll be extinct. And we're moving the connectors and the those people into extinction. Well, the problem is that as I sit, I speak, I talk, it is controlling. It is a push. It puts out that I know, whether you know or not, I know what we're doing. I'm going to make sure I get it. Well, I got to be really careful sometimes because I don't mean for it to come across that way, but I can't help but do it because it's just in my wiring. As a 6 and as a person that plans and comes to work and says, here's our plan. Well, it isn't our plan, it's my plan. Makes sense? And I come to work and I say, here's our plan. They're like, well, it's not our plan, Rick, it's your plan, and you're going to shove your plan on us, which in business, if you pay people, you can do that. But you got to work that out because they're feeling the connectors and nurturers are feeling there's too much push there, right? So you got to slow down a little bit and say, you okay? And I don't want to do this if I expense out you. That makes sense?
Yeah. I mean, the challenge would be, can you build new planners out, right? If you invite them into your planning, they can become great planners like you. But it would be, again, opening that door.
It's the 10% rotation, very hard to do. And with that, I'm kind of tippy-toeing with that. But the first thing is the admission of it, letting them know, guys, please.
Awareness first.
Yeah, please, guys, don't be bothered by me. And what happened is, this is going on all day long. There's this natural bias. I won't use the word prejudice because prejudice is a little bit different, but it's a bias. And so what you have is, since I'm a creative pioneer, the connector nurturers struggle with that. Well, I struggle being them, they struggle being me, and this is where we got to work really hard together to kind of hold on tight there and make that connection. That makes sense?
And I mean, I think the Lord provides the right people, leaders. I mean, you have a creative pioneer and Matt Causey, who does Machine Shop. You have a creative pioneer and Erica, who works closely with you. You have a pioneer creative and Nick. You have surrounded yourself with future-oriented thinkers like you, who in many ways do plan like you. I mean, I watch some of them walk in with stacks of yellow notepads themselves, and they have a similar system, a similar thinking pattern. And so it's, it's not like every once in a while it'll happen, but it's not like you have to disciple or mentor or piling a nurture connector. You for the most part end up with people that can sort of have your gearing, and then you're able to develop them, take them from unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence to conscious competence to unconscious competence around the square, slowly. But it does help that they're like you, right?
Oh, of course it does. You see, I like them because they're like me. And there it is. You got to be so careful with that, because it makes so much sense how they have all those notepads, where they're mini-me's. But that doesn't mean everybody approaches it that way, okay? And because by leaving out the nurture connector gap, we become robots, machines, and we get a lot of stuff done, but the connection is not there. Does that make sense? And so here it is. I'm as we're sitting here and talking about how to do leadership and how to have the leader's furnace, it's like, I don't know about you, I'm still an apprentice in this. I'm still learning a lot. I'm still growing into it. And I want to learn more and more and more to be the best version of myself. But, it's tough to face it and say, I'm not that good at it. I've got a lot to learn. I got blind spots. So
we'll actually take tools or create tools, or use other tools that we've brought in, and we'll test them. And sometimes it'll be like, those tools don't work today, or they're not the tool for today. And sometimes we reconnect or rediscover those tools 6 months later or a year later, and we're like, oh, now the tool applies to what we're trying to do. One of the things that we've talked a lot about has been the 3 myths, and we spent weeks covering each myth. And I think the myths help because we're talking about, what got you here won't get you there. And how there's a transition. If you're still listening, right? If the people that are still watching the Leaders Furnace today, if they're still tracking with us, we realize they're probably in their own transition and deciding whether they're going to buy into developing themselves, knowing themselves to lead themselves, entering into this leadership journey, deciding that they're going to be consistent and intentional and gain influence and lead by influence, not by personality power alone, or not by positional power alone, or by physical power alone, but by influence. And so that influence requires intentionality and consistency, and deciding that you're going to do it is probably the hardest part, right? That you're like, okay, I'm going to do this. We're going to grow. We're going to rotate, like you say. So the 3 myths that we come across as people go, I have bared fruit outside of abiding. I have strived, I have pushed, I have driven, and you're like, and the fruit rots. It's almost like it's either fake, you know what I mean, or it just doesn't stand.
It's missing something.
Yes.
Yeah.
By the way, the verse, and just so that people don't have to even find it, is John 15:5, which says, I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, it is that he bears fruit, and then apart from me you can do nothing, right? So you're abide in me, you bear fruit. Apart from me you can do nothing, which is sort of absolute. You're saying you're either with me and abiding and Sabbathing and tracking with me, or you're doing it on your own. But that's not fruit, that's something else, which is kind of wild to me as a revelation, right? So when we're doing it by ourselves, we lean into these myths. These are all illusions, and I'd love to revisit them when we have more time too, but it's calculation, elevation, and inspiration, right? Calculation is, I can control it all. I can do it myself. I can calculate it. I can look forward to it. And in some ways, this is we all, out of all 3 of these, we'll all have one myth that we're really enamored with, know?
Yeah.
And so I'll touch calculation last because that might be our favorite today. But inspiration. Inspiration is somebody comes in here, they give us a great speech, it's a rah-rah, and we're like, yes, I'm ready to go. But inspiration leads to insights. Insights lead to intent. But unless you give people a handhold, a foothold of how to start, like something really practical of how to get started, they're like, that was a great speech. You know what I mean? I don't know what to do with that, Sometimes they bring some really special forces guys in, you know what I mean? And those guys often, have a really great speech. And honestly, I'd love to be in the room for the great speeches because I love to be inspired too. The idea is when you pair that inspiration with really practical leadership insights, it's unstoppable. any of them are unstoppable, because then you're giving people a next step, you know? And so the myth is that inspiration doesn't get you there. Transformation is what we're looking for, but often inspiration is all that we get. You know, when we scroll through social media, we're looking for inspiration, and sometimes they're pretty inspiring, but we have nothing that we can do with that. It was just like, that was a nice video, right?
It's so important it's great to be inspired. We all need it. But what happens is it doesn't have a lasting power to it. So I like the inspiration part, but as you speak of transformation, that's the holding on to it for the long period of time. There's plenty of leaders that can be charismatic and they're great and you like them and you get along with them and you want to follow them. But what happens is whenever we have something that inspires us, it has to basically have a 6-month calendar pulled out so it lasts. These inspirations can be very shallow. The inspiration happens and you're excited for one day. Well, it needs to last 180 days. Okay, otherwise it's just good for the day. And these things, you got to hold on to these things and make them stick. You know, so you have to start off with a lot of inspiration, and it's got to be, you pull out a calendar or a Gantt chart and you say, okay, we're going to basically take this inspiration and for the next 6 months take a bite out of it. There's 180 sections of it, one section per day, and that creates this lasting element compared to the inspirational moment. Because a lot of us, you know, as leaders, we want to be inspirational and we want to see people that are kind of into it and want to go with it. But the one day thing just doesn't work. It's got to be the one day, and it's got to be, okay, here's a hill we're going to take. You know, there's 180 elements to the hill. We're not going to try to take that all in one day. We're going to take one bite per day. And then what happens is you end up with a behavior modification tied to the inspiration, not just the inspiration.
Yes. I'm learning from you now.
Yeah.
This is the myth that gets me. I mean, I want to operate in big spurts of inspiration and excitement and joy, and I'm in it, and I love to start things, and I love to finish things. But that messy middle in between, month 4 or month 5, I'll be like, is this working? Like, how does she or he feel about this? Like, what do other people feel about it? And how do I feel about it? And I'll get into this feeling loop where I'm like, nah, I should just stop, you know? Like,
or you get a new inspiration, and then what happens is the
new
message
idea.
changes. Yeah, and all of us don't need a bunch of new ideas. We just need one idea that's held on to, and you only need about 7 of these. But what happens is, just like you just said, it starts to feel like it's going away, or the instead of it being black and white with clarity, it becomes gray, and you're kind of in the clouds with it. Then you just go get a new one, right? And the whole time you're not winning. I know so many people that have a great idea that for 2 years go at it and then it fades out. That's the worst thing you could ever do. What you want to do is get a great idea. Do not start it until you're willing to perish executing it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you end up with, 40 years of, let's just say you have 20 great ideas that you cycle through it, you just keep going back to a new idea and you lose ground. You need to make sure the purpose is there and the spirit is there. We're in the boiler business. We want to be in the boiler business for forever. Everything we do has to be around that, and we got to have an idea that actually lasts and execute, not just an idea with a new idea next week.
Yes.
Because if you get a new idea every week, that's 52 new ideas. You can't actually do all those. No.
There's no depth to any of those ideas.
But you'll feel good. But there's an illusion there. It's the illusion of feeling good, but the depth is not there that goes with it. It has to be that, again, it's tied a little bit to the rotation and a little bit tied to the Bible verse. It's like you have to rotate. And what will happen is, as you do that you'll rotate 1% headed towards 10, and that behavior will be within you. And next thing you know, it's kind of automatically, subconsciously there all the time, not just a new idea or not an inspiration.
So people are watching their 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and they don't feel like continuing, right? What do you do now this is naturally, intuitively your strength, to just be like, I'm going to grind through this process, So since you're a thinker and you can speak to that, build out for us, what do you do when you hit the roadblock of, I've been failing at this for months now. I'm years into this process and it doesn't feel good right now. What's your next step? What is the practical thing that you do to go? Time to continue.
Yeah, so it's a signal of something. Now, we got to be really careful with this signal because it may be good, it may be bad, you don't know.
Okay.
So the first thing I would do is I would get out a notepad and I would write down what I'm feeling at the top of the page, and then I would study that. And I would, something that I talk to our people about all the time, and I'm a big believer in, is catharsis. It's a very basic tool that says here's the pluses and here's the negatives. But they have this kind of feeling happening, and we're feeling like we're not exactly there and it's not working out. We got to stop and go, well, maybe it just isn't a little further that's needed to persist, or maybe you need to burn it to the ground and go with something new. Maybe it's not working. But you don't do that quickly. If you don't go to paper, because intangible thought has to become tangible thought. A lot of people, they have a feeling or an idea, and you can be really careful. I have feelings and ideas also, but they always go to paper because there's so much more to study. And I'll take a bite out of it one day. I'll leave it sit there, and I'll see it 2 days later. I'll flip over to that page, and there'll be an extended thought that's let me take more time with it. I've like thought it through, but I've stopped and went to something else. Then I come back to it, and what happens is I can refine that thought and then re-engage it. I can either burn that to the ground and go with a new idea, or I can say, no, it's a persistence element. It's one of those, we're almost there. There's a rites of passage happening. We're going to have to go through this darkness a little bit to arrive. So we've got to be really careful about moving too quickly, because moving too quickly is those 2-year cycles where you actually don't build out a 40-year empire. You have a bunch of little kind of small wins. And you're still winning. You're still doing good. You're still providing for your family.
Yes.
You're still doing great. But it's like if you can make all of that come together and have a meaning where the purpose, it's like everything ties together in the purpose. But a lot of people want to go for some new shiny object or some new idea, or somebody has a great business idea, and next thing you know, you drop what you're doing here and you go over and do that. If that's a really bad habit, you got to be really careful about shifting gears. You have to shift gears very purposefully, not very emotionally.
It's almost like investing in different accounts. You don't ever get the compound effect if you're spread out over 40 ideas or 40 accounts. You really want to be, you said it, 1 to 5, 1 to 6 ideas, and you do those ideas really well. But really, you're stuck to one idea, the one main idea, for a long time, right? For you, the main idea 40 years ago was, hey, we're going to be in the boiler industry for a long time. Yeah. And so then there's lots of ideas under that, but your main idea is we're staying the course. True North is we're in the boiler rental business, and you have more ideas now that kind of have grown from that, right? It's grown into more businesses, but that's stayed your main idea.
Yeah, because every time you have the idea, it's going to have problems to solve and goals or aspirations to go towards. And a lot of people, when you break it down, it has to be very fundamental. Keep in mind, this makes sense with me being a thinker and an introverted person. Whenever we encounter something in the boiler industry, there's a lot of illusions in it. I mean, it's incredible. Some of the stuff I've learned that, wow, are amazing illusions that were, and I had all these people, hundreds and hundreds of people, past 1,000 people that were supposed to be hired and brought in and fix this stuff, but they lived the life where a boiler was running, but it never was actually disciplined enough to be running right. It's a totally different thing to have a running right boiler compared to a running boiler. Well, it's no different than your life. There's a life that's running, but are you getting by or are you getting ahead? It's all relative. So whenever we encounter a problem is an opportunity. So a lot of people, we speak of this here at PMI. If you have a problem you don't solve, you got to keep it, man. I mean, it's futile. This is insane. You have to solve the problem. I tell people we have backpacks on, and I'm going to take a brick and put a brick in your backpack, and that brick is a problem. Now, I don't want to solve it for you. I want you to solve it. So you have a brick in your backpack, and then they come back 2 weeks later, and I give them another brick. Well, 6 months later, they're coming in all beat down and wore out and all depressed because they got 40 bricks in there. It's like, that's not my fault. That's your fault. You didn't solve any problems. You simply are toting around problems. Solve them and take the brick out. So you have to, when you encounter something, it's an opportunity, and you got to really work that through, because a lot of people live a life of a patch versus a fix. And if you put a patch on, that patch always comes off. You have to fix as you go. So it's super hard to do that. But if you fix, the problem is gone. You can move on to other bigger and better things, even bigger and better problems to solve.
We have language for very similar things now, right? A problem is an opportunity, right? I call a problem your gauntlet, right? So you're going to grow or win from this. It's happening for you. Or a problem can be your curriculum for those who are more like, college, oriented. It's your curriculum. It means that your goal is to solve this problem over the next few months, over the next few years, but that is your curriculum, right? And so the idea is, it's ultimately what we're saying is we're not trying to just solve the problem. We're actually trying to grow through the problem.
Absolutely. You learn so much about yourself. Some people find a problem and they run away. You can't do anything with running away. You either have to run towards or at least stand and face it. There's plenty of problems we have. It's just stand and look at it for a week. You're just like, what is it? It's overwhelming. I don't know what I'm going to do about it. But you at least face it. You don't run. Yeah. You face it, and you just stand there with it, and you go, okay. And it's the most amazing thing. It's like the problem is like a 9-foot tall, really huge giant, and you can tell it's overwhelming. You're not going to win. You're going to be defeated. And you're just like, no, I defy you. I'm going to stand here. I'm not. That giant is used to everybody running away, and we just stand there and look at it. And a lot of times the giant eventually flinches, okay, because they're just like, everybody else ran away. Well, we're not running away. We're going to look at you. The next thing is we're going to figure out how to solve that problem, And when you think about it, this is probably the gospel according to Rick here, but what is life? And the nurturers and connectors here are going to go, yeah, that's him. It actually is a list. Now that sounds kind of strange, but I tell people all the time, I can see people's futures when I'm meeting based on the size of their list. Selfish people, self-interested people, people that want to be comfortable, they have little bitty lists. And you can just see it. And they also don't have many goals, let's say. Well, you can see it. It's in the list. Okay? And then if I have a problem to solve of significance, we create a list to solve it, don't we? See, the list defines everything in people. Little lists, some people want to be really social with no notes. It's like, great conversation. Not a damn thing's going to happen, but man, I feel good for 15 minutes, right? And you can see my passion right there. I'm like, it's not helping. It's great that we're friends, and it's great that we had this moment, but it's like, I still got the problem. You're going to walk away happy-go-lucky, and I'm going to be encumbered with my list. But I want to be encumbered with the list, right? A lot of people think that talking about it's doing it. No, you got to do it, and you got to. I think what's really cool about certain lists is the list of problem solving defines who you are. The next thing is what your aspiration is. Is like right now, I want a 70 Chevelle. Do I need a 70 Chevelle? No. Will it change my life? No. I want it. Okay, I desire it. I worked hard. I didn't want to get this car, and it's not been an easy thing to do. It's been a whole big process. But since I've solved 50 problems, I've decided I think I'll give myself a gift of a 70 Chevelle. And it's kind of like that. You have to learn how that works. You have to slowly create an incentive for yourself, right? Because if you're just in the grind and problem solving, you won't make it through that. You need something that's some kind of a reward for yourself. That makes sense? And if I get a 70 Chevelle in 2 years, I want to want a Stanley Steamer, I'll get bored. People are like, oh my God, you have all these cars. Well, that's because I wanted it, I longed for it, I got it, and now I'm bored. I want another one. Well, go back and solve 50 problems and do my job serving my community and others, earn the right to get a car or a material possession or a savings account or a home, whatever it is. But all those things go together, but here it is. All you got to do is look at people's lists. They're in full disclosure when you see their lists. See that? And because some people are small thinkers, in America, the goal setting element that's out there, like very few people set written goals. It's very unfortunate. Like statistics are like less than 10%. But the people that have written goals have like a 30 times chance of being successful because it's a commitment to it. It's written, and if you can write it and have a picture with it, basically it emotionalizes it in your subconscious mind, and you start going towards it.
For our PMI folk that have already put lists in place, this is just a double down of going, hey, this practice works.
They know how the list is.
For those who are at PMI that are not putting the lists down, that are not writing it down, this is just another wake-up call, right? It's the second alarm, the third alarm going, hey, you're going to miss work. You're going to miss the work if you don't wake up to the list is a feeler's way of hacking the thinker way, right? It's our build out the other way, and it's the thinker's way of actually doubling down on who they are, which is, hey, we're going to go down these lists, we're going to knock these things out.
Yes, and it's not that we want them to be like totally list people and have no personality, be robots. It's just like the list means you're now encumbered. There's clarity there. The other day, Tyler, who's one of my mentees, I don't know if you saw it. I took a picture of his lists, and I sent it out to PMI. And he has 6 notepads, and each notepad has an intent, and each notepad had multiple pages of to-dos in it. And I sent that out to everybody to say, that's That's what happens when you follow me and you pay attention. Now I asked Tyler, I said, Tyler, how does that feel? I said, when you look at yourself compared to others and you have 300 items on your list and they have 4, does that piss you off a little? Does that seem fair? He's like, not really, Rick. I said, well,
That sounds like Tyler.
you have to set that aside. They're running their race and you're running yours. But Tyler, I'm bragging about you because look what you've done. You can basically take a thought or an idea and unemotionally place it on the list. Now, you can't do all that in one day. We're not worried about that because his 300 items, we're going to get those done at the rate of 1 per day over the next 365 days. But that, what's to say, people without vision perish? The list is the vision, and you have to move towards doing the list. But I did that, and I have a brand new engineer here. And I was sitting in the room having a little bit of fun. I'm like, here's Tyler over here, and here's you, engineer. I said, and I asked the room, which one would you want? You got this really fancy mechanical engineer with his degree, and I'm pretty proud of mechanical engineers. We have several here, very proud of them. But at the end of the day, my doer will run your ass clean over. Just because you're telling everybody, look at me, I'm educated, I have my degree, this cat right here is going to smoke you because you're a technician and he's a delegatee or a delegator. That makes sense? And he's going to now, because he can do hundreds of things, and you're going to be over saying, look at my degree, look at who I am. Yeah, doing a math calculation on how to size a steam line. Great, whoop, whoop, nobody cares. This cat over here is going to do hundreds of things. See the notepad and the vision thing? And see that this guy over here, the education's awesome, he's awesome, but he's a technician, but yet he thinks he's someone. No, he needs to become him. And if he takes that education and becomes that, oh my God, do you see how that mechanical engineer will be outstanding? Anyway, if you get a chance, you just see his
You have an
notepad.
electrical engineer who has got both going on, right? He's already stacked both.
He just showed up that way. He's directly from the Lord. It's like that cat is beamed out from the Lord to me because I didn't build him.
And he showed up.
I asked for him and I received.
Yes.
I said, Lord, I was looking for something that I'm not that good at. I needed an electrical engineer. And usually I have to go through 5 to get 1. But he showed up the first time, and everybody's like, oh, my God, he's awesome. He's thorough. He's humble. He's kind. He can deep think and do a list and actually see the list through. But you see it? See how the lists are the leading indicator of things. Because people without list, okay, they're kind of bouncing around, floating around. It's not that it's all bad, but it's a little too fluffy. The list will anchor you. That makes sense. So we want to have a list, and we have a period of time where there's no list, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Rick, let me see. I want to cover these other 2 just because we're in the 3 myths, and then we'll land the plane. The second one was elevation. Elevation says, if I can just make that next 10,000, if I can just get that raise, if I can just buy my house. The idea is, if I can just buy the new car, then I will be happy. Right, and that illusion is, you kind of actually already talked about it a little bit. When you talk about the car, it's a marker of the work you've done, and then the work you're going to do on the other side of that car and continue on to the next thing. But its elevation is not that. The elevation is going, when I reach this level, I will be happy. Or when I reach this level, I will be successful. Does that ever come?
No. You think it does, and thank God we all feel that it's important for us to live that illusion.
Sure.
Because we feel like we can do it and we feel like you're going to arrive, and what happens is arriving is a problem. The striving creates so many distractions that you don't think about the arriving, because if you set a goal that's big enough, it'll feel impossible. If you set a little bitty goal, you're going to get it. It's not worth it. But if you set a goal that really makes you struggle and it's really hard, it takes a long time, you somehow think when you get, if it's a 365-day goal or a 2-year, 3-year, 4-year goal, it doesn't matter. You think that when you arrive, it's going to be better. But what I found is the arriving is very confusing, because all at once you've been out in battle. You've been a warrior and a soldier, and you've been on the battlefield, and all at once there's no battle. And you're looking around going, I'm supposed to be happy now. This is what happiness looks like. But the happiness is in the striving. It's the most amazing thing. I usually, when arriving happens, I'll usually try to celebrate it with a couple of days of just being in it, because I'm going to reset and go back to another goal. But you have to just stop for a second and go, it's an illusion. I thought when I got here I would be all that in a bag of chips, and now I'm like here and I'm a little bit bored. I want to be back in the fight. I want to be back with the people. I want to be back in the struggle. I want to be back interacting with people and climbing a hill and winning and losing and learning and all of that stuff that goes on with climbing hills with people. But yeah, I've never seen it do that. This car will be the magic fix. Well, it's not the first car. It's one of many. And this, at least this time I said, this car's not going to do it. Or the Stanley Steamer's not going to do it either. I'm just going to die with a bunch of cars. It won't matter anyway. But the idea of thinking I could get it, having the picture on the wall and longing for it. The Stanley Steamer's on the wall and the 70 Chevelle's taped to the wall right over there. I don't have it. It's longing. The longing is romantic. I can't have it. Too bad. I can get the Chevelle whenever I want it. But at the end of the day, the longing is a healthy thing. I can't have it yet.
You created a marker for when you're going to get the Chevelle, and then you're going about doing all the things that would allow you to say, all right, I can get it now.
Yes, but you need the longing. You can't have it yet.
Yeah.
There's something wrong. You're saving up. There's a technical problem with it. You got to ask your wife for more money for the car. That's the scariest part of like right now, my car budget went up by $20,000. I'm like, the $20,000 doesn't bother me too much. Just asking my wife to go to the higher level, like, oh my God, I'm gonna get my ass kicked on that one. But it's okay.
Longing in my house is, we have an ongoing discussion about a pool. And I want to get an in-ground pool. Yeah. And she, my wife has put all kinds of stipulations, And I sort of met those stipulations. I met them. And she's like, how about an above-ground pool? And now I grew up in trailer parks where above-ground pools were a thing. You have your trailer, you have your above-ground pool, and you have 3 parked cars around the above-ground pool. That's sort of, you jump from the parked car into the above-ground pool, right? That's sort of the vibe that I grew up in. And so above ground pools really bother me, right? Like I'm just like, Nick, I'd rather have no pool.
Having some memories, some flashbacks. Go back at trailer park. Yeah.
Then you might as well put a trailer in our backyard with the pool and the cars. I was like, I'm just going full on, crazy mode.
Yeah.
But that's the longing of going, hey, all right, let's reach these markers. Let's truly meet the markers, not in the gray. Let's truly meet the markers and actually get to the in-ground pool mode. And I know that it's not. I'll go in my neighbor's pool and I'll be like, this is fine. I mean, it's a pool, and I know it's not going to make me happy. But you're saying, hey, there's something about the longing and the meeting those goals, and then the actual accomplishment of that yes. is nice.
It puts meaning to all of it, because if you're willing to enter into struggle and enter into grief and enter into problem solving, you'll need to give yourself a reward for that. If not, you'll just be depressed and wore out. So I'm okay with entering into the hardship and the difficulty of it, knowing there's growth and opportunity, and get a chance to see like the Tylers and other people just rise is amazing. Very proud of this mentee. Okay, very proud. I can't take any credit for Jason. Jason showed up green.
Yeah.
Tyler showed up and he wasn't sure. He's a 6th. He wasn't sure what to do, and he had a couple of college degrees in another area, and he probably wanted to go and do that. And somehow we've got him doing what we do now at this extreme level, and he can take that. If he stays here, it doesn't stay here. He can take that anywhere he goes, and he'll be a standout individual. People are like, what is that? It's like, how do you learn that? Well, I was with a mentor, and the mentor taught how to encumber yourself on a list and not be freaked out. So we do the tough stuff, we do the servanthood, we do the problem solving. Come on. We get a chance for people to see who we really are there, and then we give ourselves somewhat of a reward.
You model this really well, and I don't want to miss the main point. With elevation, what we're trying to get is we're trying to insulate ourselves from the hard things of life, and the reality is no matter how high you get, you still have to brush your own teeth, you still have to be intentional, you still have to be consistent, you still have to build other people out, you still have to be in relationship. I think often we want to insulate ourselves from real life's problems, our family of origin, all those things, and you're like, nope, those things are still in our life, regardless of how high we get. I work with a lot of a few people who are high net worth people, and I realize they have problems just like I do when it comes to family or the cousin or the situation or the neighbors or the people in their church, or they're not when you're healthy, you're not insulating yourself from others. You're actually drawing near, but just probably with a little bit more wisdom, a little bit more capital than before, right?
Yeah. And you have to learn to accept all that stuff. All of us have those conditions, and what I found, the higher I go, the tougher it gets. A lot of people think that, hey, you go up there and there's all that money up there. No, there's all that responsibility up there. It's one of those when we take boilers to plants, and we take a boiler somewhere that's 100 million BTUs, when that boiler goes off, there's 2,000 people that are just standing around going, what's going on? Well, the boiler people's boiler's off. Okay, they're bad people. They messed us up. And there's a lot of, we charge money for that. But at the end of the day, there's a heck of a responsibility there to deal with that. So the higher we go, the more responsibility there is, and more people are we're providing for, and there's an expectation there, and there's kind of more grief that you're supposed to, when that goes down, you're supposed to feel bad and recover from it. So a lot of people think it's just counting to your money. No, it's increasing responsibility. Yeah, the money comes with it because the responsibility is going with it.
All right, I'm trying this last one out. All right, we'll land the plane on this one. And 3 years ago when we tried this, or 4 years ago when we tried this, I didn't have the tools for it. So we'll try it again. We're live this time. The myth of calculation. All right. The myth of calculation says we can control all or most alternatives or situations or contingencies that are going to happen, and so what people will do, right? And this is the thinker side of things, right? The feeler side of this was inspiration. Yep. Then we have elevation, which are all privy to, or we'll all have the tendency to fall into that. But then there's the calculation side of it, which are some of your either more present-oriented people or more of your thinker-type people will be like, oh, we really have to control as many of the outcomes as we can. Calculation says if I can just control or have or know or understand as many of the pieces as I can, then things were going to be all right. Right? Now, that is a myth, but there's a part of the thinker that's like, this is actually really good practice, right, to calculate. But there's an overdoing it part that that is really important to know where the line of calculation and where calculation is healthy or where calculation is unhealthy. So what I'm coming at this time is, instead of trying to prove it to you or have me, win the argument, I'm actually going to go, Rick, you tell us, where does calculation help and where does calculation or control begin to rot out?
That's a really big subject, Eddie.
This is how we land the plane.
Well,
maybe it's how the plane takes off again.
Well, with me being a counterphobic 6, I actually throw myself into fear and dig my way out. Mm-hmm. I don't just, and a lot of people want to be fear avoidant. It's like there's no growth if you're not afraid. You're not growing, man. I mean, you're not stretching enough. So my whole model for that is I wonder sometimes if the Lord even sees me as faithful, because I'm going to take everything that I throw myself into and I'm going to calculate the hell out of it. I mean, every building I bought, a lot of people will say, oh, we bought another building. It's like there was 87 line items on that purchase. And it was like the thing tried to fall apart. There's some oil spill back in the back. There's some other, the roof's got a problem. Like 87 things. They just think you just bought a building. No, 87 complexities we managed to get the building. And I could have said, oh, it's not a good deal. Oh, the list is too long. No, everything's like a list of 87 because I'm this, my counterphobic 6ness has something to say about that. Where a lot of people say, Jesus, take the wheel. I'm like, I don't throw all this on my Lord. I'm like, no. This is a big conversation. This could get chargy. I'm like, I'm not going to wake up in the morning and say, Jesus, take the wheel, like it's all his problem. No, I ain't doing it, okay? I'm going to take it as far as I can and say, that's all I got. That's all I got, Lord. I'm waiting. What's next? I don't have nothing else now. I've taken this boat to the dock. I'm at the dock. The sails are up. You're the wind. You got it. This is it. Mm-hmm. But I did the maintenance on the boat. I made sure the plug was in. Okay, I made sure that the bearings were greased and the sail was up so it would sail, but he's the wind. Where a lot of people say, Jesus, take the wheel. No, that's not for me.
Say Carrie Underwood.
Yeah, take Carrie Underwood, mm-hmm. Jesus, take the wheel. I love the song. It's a great song. They've sold a lot of records, but I'm like, okay, Jesus, take the wheel. Once I've done my work, okay, this isn't Jesus' responsibility to fix everything for me and take care of everything. And some people would say, well, you still don't even sound like a Christian. No. I'm a counterphobic 6 that goes into fear every day. Mm-hmm. I don't even like not doing something that don't scare me. Mm-hmm. Because there's no big end to it. It's like comfortable, right? So I think, and this is only the gospel according to Rick, and that is that everything's a one-page problem, mm-hmm. and we do all the homework we can, and we set it down and slide it across the table and go, take me where I'm going to go, Lord. Mm-hmm. But you got to be prepared, mm-hmm. because if not, the stuff will kick your butt mm-hmm. going up the hill.
Yes.
There's some things in there to learn, to prepare for. You got to study the downsides. There's always a period of persistence that goes with anything of significance. You're going to take a beating. There's a rites of passage that goes with everything of significance. So I write it all out. I'm different than that. Some people are like, God, that doesn't even sound like faith. I've questioned myself about it also. It's like, Lord, maybe I'm not a person of faith. Maybe I'm a person of calculation. But I don't do it that way. I'll do the calculation, I'll do the study, and I'll slide the piece of paper over and say, Lord, you're the wind. Where are we going? Okay, that makes sense. So
you're calculating and you're controlling the inputs.
yeah, I'm controlling everything. It's a crazy thing. If you ever do a ride along with me, you're like, no wonder things work out for me, because I'm managing the upside, the downside, the inside, the outside, and every side. Because you have to. Because if you don't, it'll kick your ass, and then what it will do is it will break your heart, and you will give up, because you'll start to encounter all these adversities. You're going to go, I'm not worthy. No. You're worthy. It's just I do it differently than most people. I study it really hard. Whether people like say they want to trust it. Well, if we're building a boiler or whatever, it's not a trust thing. It's an engineering thing. Makes sense?
This is excellent. So we're calibrating, right? As you're going, you actually have the tool of calculation is so powerful and it's so strong for you. Where it becomes a myth is where it's over control, right? And so distinguish that for me as we have a lot of thinkers also listening who either are here at PMI or are thinkers that lead other organizations, and their control can end up being dominating to their community or their leaders, right? Where do you see that happening?
Well, whether I offer my plan to the Lord in prayer, or I talk to my team about, hey, I have this intention, I'd like you all to help me with that. It's two different things. So it isn't, I've got all of it. It's like, look, I've got us to here, take me to there. Because if I don't, historically in the past, what I would do is, because us sixes, we're not very people-y. Okay? We've had a lot of people do us wrong, so we're like not people-y, okay? Because we don't trust them, okay? And that's something you got to learn over time to overcome. At age 28, that made total sense. At age 64 now, that's not working anymore, because everybody's got a piece of this to contribute in a very different way, and I got to stop to catch that. So with that, whether I'm at home making a deal with myself and then passing it to the Lord and saying, where are we going to go? Or I'm a PMI saying, I've thought this through. I'd like to introduce this plan to you all. Will you all tell me what you think? We have to ask for input on the plan. Because if you don't ask for input on the plan, you're just going to be a dictator. And believe me, I'm already labeled all these kind of things. When you put me up, when you compare the nurturers and the connectors, I'm already in dictator land. Why? Because I like this. Well, they're over in fluffy land. So we're both got a problem. That makes sense. They're non-specific. I'm overly specific. But we got to learn to love each other, because both of us need a little bit of what the other person has. As that 10% again, the touchy-feely people need to get on a notepad, set some goals, be specific, encounter some grief. Don't give up. And for those of us that are on a plan, we got to learn to be more connective. Stop and take a Sabbath. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, overly plan it. And this is the gospel according to a 6 who's a counterphobic. I like the fear. It's like standing next to the giant going, let's get it on. That makes sense? I don't know what's going to happen right here, but it's okay. I've been to the hospital before. It ain't nothing new. So let's just get at it. Let's just get an outcome going here, right? But you see it. It's just there's a passion for it. It's like, I like to see the giant. I like to take a ride to the hospital and learn something, because once I get stitched up and back up, we back up with that giant with a new plan. That makes sense? We'll come back with a new tool for the giant. So as a counterphobic 6, it's different. But I like to enter fear because there's opportunity in the fear. But if you enter the fear and you don't have a plan, you can really hurt yourself. So a lot of people don't understand how this works. They just see these outcomes. We have this museum, we have this, we have a building, we have some boilers. Every one of them was done exactly the same way. We set a goal that was scary. We worked really hard for 6 months. We arrived. I got bored for a week. And oh, wow, we arrived. Then we set another goal. Make sense?
Absolutely. Rick, we covered essentially the 3 myths or 3 illusions, right, of inspiration, calculation, and elevation, right? And what we're trying to get from them and what we don't get from them, right, when they are tools versus when we overuse them as well. So thank you for your insight. I feel like we are able to continue to dispel different things that are there, chains that inhibitions or prohibitions that we've put on ourselves along the way. So thank you for today.
Very good. Thank you, Eddie.